Hi everyone, I'm Dale Smith, aka Cherno Dale, and we're here to talk about Canadian politics. As you might expect, the report from the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians, also known as NSICOP or NSICOP, has created a lot of stir because of the mentions in the report around some current and former MPs who may have been witting or semi-witting participants in some form of foreign interference, usually involving the exchanging of favors with members of staff from diplomatic missions from particular countries, largely China and India. And that could have been around things like offering information in exchange for the promise to rally voters to their cause, that kind of thing. There was a few other allegations in there as well, but those are what the most of them seem to be around. If you read the report, and not just the one paragraph, but actually other paragraphs earlier in the report that actually spell this whole situation out. Regardless, this has become the whole rallying cry of name the names, which would violate not only the terms by which the report was created in terms of not leaking particular secret information, but also in terms of the fact that this is intelligence, it's not evidence. We don't know how thinly or how fully sourced any of this is. And any kind of attempt to name names would be done without any sort of due process. So anyone who is falsely implicated in this would not have a proper ability to clear their names. And that's a really big problem, particularly in a very sensitive issue like this, where people are throwing around the word treason and so on, not all of it warranted. Suffice to say, this should have been an opportunity for all of the party leaders to go ahead and get the proper security clearance so that they can get the classified briefings, so that they can be fully aware of what is going on, particularly within their own parties. And this is one of these things where there's a temptation to say, well, the RCMP is on it, which allegedly they are, in some capacity, but they don't really say how. But when it boils down to this is really a political problem. It's a problem with the way candidates and incumbents have been engaging with foreign diplomats in hopes of securing some sort of political advantage or so on within their ridings, when it comes to mobilizing diasporic votes and so on. And so that's a problem for within the party, but it's also something that the party leaders need to manage themselves, because they need to know who's implicated so that they can take action, whether that means not signing someone's nomination papers, whether that means removing someone from caucus, whether that means ensuring that they simply don't run again in the next election. But not all of the party leaders are choosing to do so. The Bloc leader is still contemplating whether he should do this, and the Conservative leader is outright refusing, under the notion that it would somehow tie his hands and then he couldn't perform his function in holding the government to account. And that's false, and as I keep saying, that's complete bullshit, because he could absolutely hold the government to account. If he got the classified briefing, he can't release specific details about what it says, particularly around sources or some specific information that could identify where the information came from. But he could absolutely say the NSICOP report is credible. He could say it's not credible. He could say the government's characterization of things is correct. He could say it's not correct. And and kind of go from there. And it's not like he needs to divulge all of these details in order to perform the accountability function of his office. And it would be to his benefit if he had the full information so that he could make informed and rational critiques of what is happening. But he doesn't want to do that. As we've covered in many of these videos before, he does have security clearance by way of his being a privy councillor. There's a particular added process that has been added to that for people who are not currently in cabinet, but that's beside the point. It doesn't really affect the fact that he is a privy councillor. He is sworn to keep secret that which needs to be kept secret. And he has simply chosen not to. And this is a long-standing problem in Canadian politics, where opposition leaders don't like to get classified briefings and be informed because they feel like they can't then make outrageous allegations and say all kinds of, light their hair on fire about things, because they like the theatricality of doing that, and it gets the media attention. And if instead they were informed and needed to behave like adults with what they've learned, then they feel like they couldn't be as theatrical and get as much attention to their issues. And that's a particular problem, and it's a long-standing problem in Canadian politics. And you would think that perhaps in this particular moment where we are so concerned about this issue around foreign interference, that perhaps maybe we might start seeing a little bit of political maturity among some of the parties, but they are choosing not to. And that's a problem writ large for our democracy going forward. And then there's this next part. In order to somehow solve this impasse, which shouldn't really be an impasse, because they should just get briefed and know what's going on and take action within their parties, instead they are deciding to push this all off on Justice Hogue, who is leading the foreign interference inquiry. This is at best a delaying action because she can't force the leaders to do anything about the members implicated in their caucuses. She probably can't release the names because she is also bound by the same security oaths that they all took. So the fact that they are insisting that a political problem is once again being foisted onto a judge is just so typical of what is happening in Canadian politics these days. I mean, the entire reason why we have this commission led by Justice Hogue is because the leaders could not behave like adults, take the information that David Johnston had collected and compiled, read the classified version, and the underlying information that came with it, and then come to conclusions like mature adults in terms of how they're going to combat foreign interference. No, instead they needed to insist that they needed a judge to deal with this because apparently that no other way is credible. And it's not true. It shouldn't have gotten to this far, to this point. And this could have long been towards being solved in a collective effort. But nobody wanted to do that because certain parties wanted to take partisan shots and wanted to implicate the government somehow in what has gone on. And this goes back to the problem of maturity, which, as you can see, we are sorely in need of in Canadian politics these days. So all that pushing this onto Justice Hogue is going to do, and I think I heard mention that like a report back date of October 1st or something like that, which again just pushes this down the road for several months, leaves the clouds of suspicion hanging where they shouldn't. This could be solved within a couple of weeks if all of the leaders got their clearance sorted, read the classified briefings, and collectively took action within their own caucuses. But they're not going to do that. Instead, we're going to keep delaying. We're going to foist this onto a judge. We're going to try and pretend that we're doing a nonpartisan process for a political problem. And I need to stress that this is a political problem. And in the end, Justice Hogue is basically going to have to turn it back to the party leaders because she can't do anything about the implicated people in those caucuses. And we'll be right back where we are today, but in October, and having the same fight over again. And so this is just one of these completely frustrating elements about how our politicians, or certain politicians, are not taking this as seriously as they should. They will stand up and thunder about how terrible this is, but they're not going to do anything about it when they have the power to do so. And that's a real problem. And we should be demanding that our party leaders all act like responsible grown-ups, get their security clearance, read the classified briefing, and then take action within their own caucuses. They don't have to name the names. They can sideline MPs in all manner of ways and leave it up to, at least give these MPs within their caucuses a chance to defend themselves in that contained environment where it's not going to be a public spectacle, and it's not going to be a three-ring circus, but this is the state of Canadian politics right now. And I have no doubt that some leaders want a three-ring circus so that they can blast it over their social media because they think that's going to get them the engagement that they want. Well, instead, things are just really... I don't even know the right word. It's not really crumbling, but democracy's not really doing very well because of behavior like this. And that's a problem in this country. And that's everything for this week. Join us again next week for some more Canadian politics. I'm Dale Smith. That's at Journo_Dale on Twitter and JournoDale __ on Bluesky. And don't forget to like the video, share, subscribe, and support us on Patreon. Thanks, everyone.